Hello everyone. Today we'll be learning about the bone radius. The radius is the lateral bone of the forearm. The ulna is the medial bone of the forearm. Here is the radius bone and here is the ulna. Radius and ulna constitute the bones of the forearm. Now let's see which are the main parts of radius. The radius consists of three main parts. These are the upper end, the shaft and the lower end. So here is the bone radius. Here comes the upper end and here comes the shaft region and here comes the lower end. So the three main parts of radius are an upper end, a shaft and a lower end. Now let's see the side determination of radius. The first point is that how do you differentiate between the upper end and the lower end? So for this, examine the upper end. Upper end consists of this disc-shaped rounded part and this part is called as the head of radius. So upper end is rounded and bears the disc-shaped head. While the lower end, when you observe the lower end is broader than the upper end. So this is how you differentiate the upper end and the lower end. And the next point regarding the side determination is that the lateral surface of the shaft is convex. So here comes the shaft and here you can see that slight convexity is there along this surface of the shaft, and this surface is the lateral surface. So the lateral surface of the shaft is convex. That means this convex surface, it should face laterally, or it is the lateral surface. The next point is that the anterior surface is concave in the lower part. So here is the anterior surface and the lower part of the anterior surface. At the lower part of the anterior surface there is a slight concavity. So this concavity, it should face anteriorly. So the anterior surface of the shaft is concave in its lower part. Now coming to the next point, there is a conical bony projection present at the lower end of the radius. Here you can see a conical bony projection and this is named as the styloid process of radius. And this styloid process, it projects from the lower end. It should project from the lateral surface of the lower end. So when you hold the bone in anatomical position, here is the styloid process and styloid process should project from the lateral surface of the lower end. Now considering all these points, I am going to hold the bone in its anatomical position. So first the upper end is rounded and it has the disc shaped head, it should come up. Then the lower end is expanded, so it should come down. Then the lateral surface of the shaft is convex, so convexity should face laterally. Then the lower part of the anterior surface, there is a slight concavity and that concavity should face anteriorly. And then the styloid process, which projects from the lower end, it should project from the lateral surface of the lower end. So holding the bone in anatomical position, this is the right side radius, the radius of right side. Now let's see each of the parts of radius in detail. First, regarding the upper end. Upper end consists of further three parts. These are the head, the neck and the tuberosity. So here is the upper end. So actually this much part forms the upper end. Upper end consists of a head, the neck and this tuberosity. It is also called radial tuberosity. So here is the head, this rounded disc shaped part is the head, then neck is the constricted part, then here is a radial tuberosity or radial tuberosity. The head is disc shaped and rounded and medially it articulates with the radial notch of ulna. So here is the bone ulna and Here you can see a notch. This notch is called radial notch of ulna. So to this notch, the head of the radius articulates. So the head of the radius articulates medially with the radial notch of ulna. Now the upper surface of this head, you can see it is slightly concave. This concave hollow upper surface articulates with the capitulum of humerus. Now here is the bone humerus, and here comes the lower end of humerus. Lower end of humerus consists of the capitulum and the trochlea. So here is the capitulum. So to this capitulum, the upper surface of the head of the radius articulates. So here is the upper surface of the head of radius, and this way it articulates with the lower end of humerus and forming a part of the elbow joint. Now this is how the elbow joint is formed, with the head of the radius articulating with the capitulum of the lower end of humerus, and the trochlear notch of ulna articulates with the trochlea of humerus. The head of radius articulates medially with the radial notch of ulna to form the joint named as superior radio-ulnar joint. So here comes the superior radio-ulnar joint. So here is the head of radius and here is the radial notch of ulna. So it articulates like this and forms the superior radio-ulnar joint. Now coming to the next part, that is the neck. Neck is the constricted part below the head. So here the constricted part present below the head is the neck, and one muscle gets inserted to this neck that is named as supinator. Coming to the next part, that is the tuberosity or the radial tuberosity. So here comes the radial tuberosity. It is present below the medial part of the neck. So here is the medial aspect and here is the lateral aspect. So the tuberosity, radial tuberosity is present below the medial part of the neck, and one muscle gets inserted into this radial tuberosity, and it is the biceps brachii. This is a very important attachment. Now that we have seen the parts of the upper end, let's see the next part, that is the shaft. So here comes the shaft, starting from here up till here. So the shaft is narrow above and broader below. You can observe that the shaft is narrow here in the beginning and it is broader below. The shaft possesses 3 borders and 3 surfaces. The 3 borders are anterior border, posterior border and introitious border or medial border. Now let's see the borders and surfaces in detail. First, about the medial border, or it is also called as the introitious border. The name introitious is given after the introitious membrane. So what is this introitious membrane? Introitious membrane is a broad, thin sheet of fibrous connective tissue which connects bones to each other. So introitious membrane is present in the forearm, which connects the radius and ulna to each other, and that is how it is named interosseous. And this introitious membrane divides the forearm into anterior and posterior compartments. Also, this membrane serves as site of attachment of muscles. And the introitious membrane of forearm, it gets attached along this medial border, and that is why medial border is also called as introitious border. And introitious border is a sharp border except at its upper part. So here, this is the introitious border. It is, as you can see, it is very sharp. It is a sharp border except at its upper part. At the upper part, it is not sharp. And it begins from the postero-inferior part of radial tuberosity and it extends downwards till a triangular area above the ulnar notch of radius. So the extent of the introitious border is it starts from the postero-inferior part of radial tuberosity. So here is the radial tuberosity, and when you hold the bone in anatomical position, the postero-inferior part of the radial tuberosity. From there, the interosseous border starts and it comes down and it extends till a triangular area here. This triangular area is present above a notch here. Here you can see a notch. This notch is named as ulnar notch of radius. So above the ulnar notch of radius there is a triangular area here. So up till this triangular area is the extent of the interosseous border. Now one muscle gets inserted into this interosseous border, that is named as pronator quadratus. The pronator quadratus muscle is inserted into the triangular area here. And the interosseous border, it gives attachment to the interosseous membrane all along its length. Now coming to the anterior border. The anterior border, it begins at the anterolateral part of the radial tuberosity. So here is the radial tuberosity. Here is the anterolateral part of radial tuberosity. So holding the bone in anatomical position, radial tuberosity and anterolateral part of the radial tuberosity, from where the anterior border begins, and down here the anterior border extends till the lateral side. The anterior border runs down obliquely to the lateral side of the bone. So here is the anterior border. It starts from the anterolateral part of radial tuberosity and runs down obliquely to the lateral side of the bone. And the flexor digitorum superficialis muscle takes origin from this border, and also the extensor retinaculum is attached to the anterior border. Next is about the posterior border. The posterior border begins from the postero-inferior part of radial tuberosity. So the radial tuberosity, postero-inferior part of the radial tuberosity, that is behind here, behind the radial tuberosity and little bit down. The postero-inferior part of radial tuberosity, from where the posterior border begins, and it runs down and it ends in a tubercle here in the lower end, and it is named as dorsal tubercle. So the posterior border, it begins from the postero-inferior part of the radial tuberosity. It runs down and it extends till the tubercle named as dorsal tubercle at the back of the lower end. And this border, it is prominent in the middle part only. So you can see here in this part it is prominent, and while it is very much ill defined here and here. Next we are going to see the surfaces of the shaft. There are three surfaces: anterior surface, posterior surface and lateral surface. So first about the anterior surface. So here is the anterior aspect, and what you see is the anterior surface of the shaft. Anterior surface lies between the anterior border and the interosseous border. So here comes the interosseous border and here comes the anterior border. So in between the anterior border and the interosseous border, here comes the anterior surface. Anterior surface lies between the anterior border and the interosseous border. Now the muscle attachments of the anterior surface are flexor pollicis longus, which takes origin from the anterior surface, then pronator quadratus, which is inserted into the anterior surface. Next is about the posterior surface. The posterior surface lies between the interosseous border and the posterior border. So this is the anterior surface and this is the posterior surface. And here is the interosseous border, the sharp interosseous border, and this is the posterior border, which we have already seen, which is prominent only in the middle part, and the surface in between the interosseous border and the posterior border, this is the posterior surface. So posterior surface lies between the interosseous border and the posterior border. Now the muscle attachments coming in the posterior surface are abductor pollicis longus, which takes origin from this surface, then extensor pollicis brevis, which also takes origin from this posterior surface. Next is about the lateral surface. the lateral surface lies between the anterior border and the posterior border. So this is the anterior surface and we have seen the posterior surface here, and here is the anterior border, and here comes the posterior border which is prominent only in the middle. So this surface which lies between the anterior border and the posterior border, this surface is the lateral surface. So lateral surface lies between the anterior border and the posterior border. Now the muscle attachments in the lateral surface are, one is pronator teres, which is inserted into a rough ridge present in the lateral surface. So here in the middle of lateral surface you can see a rough ridge here. There is a slight color change there, it is actually a ridge. There is a rough ridge present in the middle of the lateral surface to which the muscle pronator teres gets inserted. Now another muscle which gets inserted to the lateral surface is the supinator. Supinator gets inserted just above the insertion of the pronator teres. Now we have finished the upper end and the shaft. Now let's see the lower end. The lower end, so here is the lower end of radius. The lower end, as you can see, it is broad and expanded, and it is kind of quadrangular in shape, and it possesses 5 surfaces. The 5 surfaces are lateral surface, medial surface, inferior surface, anterior surface and posterior surface. Okay, so this is the anterior view of the bone, and here comes the lateral surface of the lower end. Then here comes the medial surface of the lower end. Then here comes the inferior surface of the lower end. Then here comes the anterior surface of the lower end, and behind comes the posterior surface of the lower end. So these are the 5 surfaces of the lower end. So once again, holding the bone in anatomical position, here is the anterior surface. Then here is the lateral surface. Here comes the medial surface, and here is the inferior surface, and then behind here is the posterior surface. Now let's see each of these surfaces in detail. First about the lateral surface. So here is the lateral surface. The lateral surface presents a conical bony projection at its lower end, and this is called as the styloid process. So styloid process is a conical bony projection present in the lateral surface of the lower end of radius, and the tip of styloid process is subcutaneous, that is, it can be felt over the skin, and this styloid process is very important. Now there comes a muscle attachment to the lateral surface, that is brachioradialis muscle gets inserted into the lateral surface of the lower end just above the styloid process. Now about the medial surface of the lower end. So here is the medial surface of the lower end. Here, this one is the medial surface of the lower end. The medial surface bears a smooth notch. So here you can see a notch over here in the medial surface of the lower end, and this notch is named as ulnar notch of radius, and this notch articulates with the head of ulna and forms a joint, that is the inferior radio-ulnar joint. Now here is the bone ulna, and here is the head of ulna. This part is known as the head of ulna, and in the head of ulna you can see a articular part here, a smooth articular part, and this part it articulates with this notch, that is articulates with the ulnar notch of radius to form the inferior radio-ulnar joint. So there are 2 joints formed between the radius and ulna. One is superior and one is inferior. Here comes the superior radio-ulnar joint, and here comes the inferior radio-ulnar joint. We have already seen about the superior radio-ulnar joint, and the inferior radio-ulnar joint is formed where the ulnar notch of radius articulates with the head of ulna. while the superior radioulnar joint is formed here where the medial aspect of the head of radius articulates with the radial notch of ulna to form the superior radioulnar joint. So here is the inferior radioulnar joint. This is how the inferior radioulnar joint is formed. Next is about the inferior surface. So here comes the inferior surface. The inferior surface. Inferior surface is smooth and concave, and it helps in forming the wrist joint. The inferior surface consists of a medial part and a lateral part. So here is the medial part and here is the lateral part. The medial part articulates with the bone lunate and the lateral part articulates with the bone scaphoid and forms a part of the wrist joint. Next is about the anterior surface. So here is the anterior surface. The anterior surface is very narrow. See, this much part is the anterior surface. The anterior surface is very narrow and it is present as a thick prominent ridge. And the anterior surface gives attachment to the capsular ligament of wrist joint. Now coming to the posterior surface. So here is the posterior surface. The posterior surface is broad and irregular. There are many bony prominences here and there, and this makes the posterior surface irregular, and it is broad. And the posterior surface has a tubercle in the middle. This tubercle is named as the dorsal tubercle. The dorsal tubercle gives attachment to extensor retinaculum. Pronation and supination are movements that occur at the proximal radioulnar joint. Here, the head of the radius rotates and shaft of radius crosses over ulna. Now, let me tell you few points regarding the clinical anatomy of radius. The radius bone commonly gets fractured about 2 cm above its lower end, and this type of fracture is named as Colles fracture. This fracture is caused by a fall on the outstretched hand. When you fall on an outstretched hand, this type of fracture occurs, and in this fracture, the fracture can occur in two ways. The distal fragment is sometimes displaced upwards and backwards, and this type of fracture is called the Colles fracture with dinner fork deformity. The type of deformity, that deformity is named as dinner fork deformity, that is the hand resembles the appearance of a dinner fork, and the other type in which the distal fragment it gets displaced anteriorly, and this is named as Smith's fracture. You can see the Colles fracture with dinner fork deformity and the Smith's fracture in this diagram. So in the Colles fracture, the broken fragment is displaced upwards and backward, and in the Smith's fracture, the fracture fragment gets displaced anteriorly. Next condition is called as pulled elbow, which occurs in children. In this case, there occurs the dislocation of the head of the radius and it results in subluxation, and this is known as pulled elbow. This occurs in children when there is a sudden powerful jerk on the hand of the child which results in the dislocation of the head of the radius. That's all about the bone radius. I hope you liked this video. Thanks for watching.